All right. I'd like to call to order the public hearing of the Village of Riverwoods hearing of the appropriations ordinance, right? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ford,
Present.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
Trustee Eastmond,
Here.
Trustee Jamerson,
Here.
Trustee Rath,
Here.
Trustee Smith, and Trustee Trevino. We have a quorum.
Well, the purpose of this meeting is the presentation of our appropriations ordinance, and I'd like to turn it over to our village attorney and our finance director, please.
I'll begin by saying I think the entire ordinance will be presented as well during the regular part of the board meeting. The state law requires that we have a hearing before we adopt the appropriations ordinance, but that we can then adopt it in the same meeting later that night. The appropriations ordinance is the means by which the board authorizes the potential expenditure of funds, of monies in each of our funds, the general fund and water fund, sewer fund, and so forth. We begin, and the director can provide much more detail of this, we begin with the budgeting process. We estimate the revenues that we'll have coming in. We look at the amounts that we'll need for expenses, salaries, all the costs, and some of the capital planning that we do as well. And then in order to set an upper limit to those budgeted amounts, we have a different column in the appropriation ordinance which lays out the amount appropriated. Typically, that's 10% over the budgeted amount. That spread has been narrowing over the years, but we try to keep pretty close on most of the line items. Then there'll be a few exceptions where we'll have a very generous appropriation for items which are really estimates. We have contingencies, we have transfers, potential transfers that could be authorized from the general fund to other funds if we were to encounter a need for a particular kind of capital project that we don't anticipate right now. So that's how the appropriation ordinance is constructed, and a good way of understanding it is that it sets the upper limit to what we can appropriate and what we can spend. But because we can make transfers within line items within a fund, and because we have contingency amounts set forth, the total amount that we appropriate is much, much more by several orders of magnitude than what we actually spend. If you look at the budget, that's much more likely to be what we actually spend in the village, but the appropriation safely gives the village board the authority in case we encounter something unexpected. And I always like to point the board, if you look at page 50 in the packet. 50. This is the recap by fund. Instead of scrolling through pages and pages of the ordinance, it shows you the amount that's being appropriated for each of the major and minor funds of the village. We also indicate the amounts appropriated for the special service areas. For example, if a special service area has a maintenance levy, by appropriating this amount, we then have the authority to spend the money from the maintenance levy that the special service area has asked us to raise. But the total amount, the next page, page 51 of appropriation is, as you see, very high and has no practical relation to the amount that we will actually spend under the budget. So I just want to point that out. This is the way that the appropriations process works. It sets these upper bounds, but we are guided mostly by the budget process itself. I don't know if the director wants to comment now or wait till later in the meeting.
I think Attorney Huvard has covered the meaning behind the appropriation ordinance very well. I'll just state that we did publicly post that this hearing would be tonight. And again, we manage to the budget, but the appropriations is where we get the legal authority to spend. And once again, the board has discretion over what's ultimately approved to be spent throughout the budget year.
Are there any questions or discussion items that the board would like to take up at this point? Well,
Comments from the public?
oh, I didn't see that here. Is there anyone from the public who has a question on the appropriations ordinance or any item therein? Okay, seeing none,
Motion to close the
may I have
public.
a motion to close the meeting?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Thank you.
Hearing, she meant. Not the meeting, but the hearing. Motion was to close the public hearing.
Yes, yes.
What did I
close
say?
the-
What?
to
Oh,
close the
did you say,
hearing.
you said it wrong, right?
I just said so moved. So
Okay.
I moved, said, but I assumed you meant
We're
to
close,
close.
right?
we're
I
just-
mean, the
I
hearing's
assumed you
over.
meant to close the hearing, not
There-
the
Anybody
meeting.
needs clarity?
Although I'm
see
okay
the-
with
yeah.
closing the meeting.
That's what
All
I'm
right.
saying.
Thank you for that, counsel. All right. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods. Will you please stand with me and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ford.
Here.
Trustee Clayton.
Here.
Trustee Eastman.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson.
Here.
Trustee Raff.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Still here.
And Trustee Trevino.
Here.
We still have a quorum.
Well, the first order of business is the consent agenda, and we have a note that the minutes really do need to be amended. And I know, I think this is like the death knell for this consent agenda, frankly. I really tried. So what I would like to have is a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists solely of the approval of the bills at this point in time.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Trustee Raff.
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Trustee Trevino.
Aye.
And Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So the first order of business is a review of the board, of the minutes of the board for the regular meeting of February 17th. The adjustment would be for the motion to approve the consent agenda, which included 2 trustees who were not at the meeting. So that probably needs to be changed. Are there any other suggestions for change or additions to that? If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes with that amended
So moved.
amendment?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Trustee Raff moved and
Okay.
I seconded.
Okay. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye,
All
please.
opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. First order of real business is the Finance Director's report. Director Vasquez, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to highlight a few items about the budget/appropriations ordinance for tonight. The appropriations ordinance is on the agenda, in new business. The budgeted numbers are also included for both expenses and expected revenues. Village staff manages to the approved budget amounts, but spending authority comes from the appropriated amounts. The appropriated amounts, as Attorney Huvard said, are generally 10% higher than the budgeted numbers with a few exceptions. The budgeted numbers were developed based on discussion and guidance from the board at our December finance workshop. At the suggestion of the board, I tried very hard to amend some of my more conservative projections, and especially now that we have numbers showing the entire activity for 2025. As a result, $375,000 was added to general fund revenue expectations for 2026 to reflect the performance of sales tax revenues as well as interest received from our investment accounts. The following are some highlights from the general fund. 2025 had some large non-recurring activity related to the federal life property. We received reimbursement from the fire district for their share of property taxes and site work for demolition. 2025 interest revenue far exceeded expectations at $485,000. With consecutive years of high performance, I adjusted that revenue higher for 2026. Also, we kept 12,000 that was added in the 2025 budget in 2026 for potential communication needs in the upcoming year. Over in the MFT fund, the street maintenance expenses remained at $1.2 million. This is due to the delay of the Saunders Road STP project that we expected in 2025 and has now been deferred to 2026. In the water fund, we have an increased scope of capital projects in 26 compared to 2025. The Thorngate Water Reservoir project was delayed into 2026, and we anticipate an initial payment for the water main relocation due to the Deerfield Road widening project to happen this year as well. Also sent to the board in the packet was a surplus/deficit table of the general motor fuel tax, water, and sewer funds to give an idea of how these funds are currently operating on a revenue versus expense basis year to year. The general fund shows a surplus in 2025 of approximately 1.3 million. However, there was a budgeted transfer to TIF number 2 that we will likely book as part of our audit process, and there's some reimbursement money that we receive from the fire district that needs to be moved over in a journal entry to TIF number 2 as well. The final numbers will be presented with our audit in June. MFT shows a $1 million budgeted deficit in 2026. This again is due to the large expense of the upcoming Saunders Road project. MFT should have enough funds to cover this expense. The water fund has a $400,000 surplus for 2025 activity. This was due to a reduction in planned capital projects last year. The 2026 water fund budget has a $1 million deficit, which is due to anticipated capital spending due to the deferred Thorngate Water Reservoir project, as well as the Deerfield Road water main relocation. As we discussed at the budget workshop in December, I think that a water rate study will help us plan out water rates needed to support our infrastructure projects in our longer term planning going forward. The sewer fund has a $400,000 surplus in 2025, which is mostly due to no capital projects happening in 25. In 2026, we have a budgeted deficit of $900,000 in the sewer fund, which is mostly due to the $1 million of capital projects we have budgeted for the replacement of multiple lift stations in 2026. Also included in the packet were summary sheets showing cash projections for the upcoming year and a list of capital projects that we included in the upcoming budget year. I know we've had some recent discussion in recent months about making sure that our planned capital projects stay on target. As we wrap up the budget and appropriations, the audit season is in full swing with our field work beginning March 30th. After the audit is completed and presented, I plan to begin the 2027 budget process in July with the finance workshop in the fall and a goal of bringing the budget and appropriations ordinance to the board in December next year instead of the following March. I do realize that exactly 1 year ago today, I made the exact same statements, but I do believe that our department can accomplish that goal and task this upcoming year. Finally, I'd like to thank the mayor, the board, the department heads, and our village attorney for your help in completing the budget process and the appropriations ordinance. And again, that's all I have for my report, but the appropriations ordinance is included in new business tonight.
Are there any questions for our director? Trustee Jamerson, please.
I actually have a question, but I think I'm going to wait until Director Witt talks about Saunders Road, which he always does. Yes or not tonight? No. Well, then I'll ask my question. Well, no, you don't have to, because I know what the answer is going to be. Okay. Well, thank you. I guess my concern is, did you, and maybe you said this and I'm drawing a blank, but did you do any increase in the budget for the Saunders Road construction, since there's no way in the world that the contractor is going to hold his price? And everything's going up. So did we increase what we think we're going to have to pay for that, our share? in our budgeting and appropriation. I know the appropriations will probably cover it because we can move stuff from contingency if we have to, but thoughts?
I did not increase that line item. I know I had talked, and this is going months back, but with GHA about what line item they would recommend for that particular project. But as we get further into this delay, you are right that there very well could be issues with if the vendor is able to hold their price and what that could ultimately mean.
Well, and I can tell you that whether it's a union vendor or non-union vendor, it's got to be a prevailing wage job, which we all know. The prevailing wages are going up, considerably going up this year in a lot of cases. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then the other question would evidently be for Director Witt, which I know he doesn't have an answer for, but and maybe it's a legal question. Is there any way we can get out of the commitment that we've made to the contractor that the state is having issues with, so that we can put this back out to bid for this season? I know we're already behind the 8 ball on that because the next bid letting would be in June. And maybe I'm talking in the wrong place, but
Well,
since
I haven't looked
that.
into whether or not we can get out, but I thought the whole point of it was that a substantial portion was being federally funded.
Correct.
Is.
So if we pull out, would we ever do this project without, you're not suggesting?
Well, I'm not saying we pull out of the process, but I'm saying, can we get out of our connection with the vendor who is having trouble with the state and then put it back out to bid under the federal program so that we can,
In order to get the 80-20 split, IDOT would have to send this back out for letting.
and they're not going to do that right
And
now.
at this point, they're not going to do that because then builders would have even more of a lawsuit against the state to try to preclude them from bidding on the job. Because what are the odds that they're not the low bidder again? Except now when they're the low bidder, they're going to be higher than where they were
There'll be a
before.
higher low bidder.
But we don't know that.
Well, we don't. But
So yes, and if we bypassed the IDOT process and that opportunity,
well, I don't want to
the
bypass.
project would cost us 5 times what it's currently
I
scheduled
don't
to
want to
cost us.
bypass the state process. I do not want to do that. I just was curious because we may never get this done at this rate.
Trustee Eastman, please.
I'd just give you a little update on that. I did about 2 weeks ago reach out to IML, and Brad Cole said that we were like the first community to reach out to him, which surprised me. So we're kind of figuring out what the next step is there. But I mean, my understanding, and from reading, the Sun-Times has been pretty good at covering that, is that everything is pretty much frozen until they figure out the legal pathway, right? Yeah, it's a mess. But yes, we're figuring out what the best way to probably work through IML is, but it would also require other communities being part of that effort. But yes, it's on our radar screen, but it is quite the mess.
So then one more quick.
Please, yes.
So then, and I've gone down Saunders, but it's been a while and I don't know what the condition of the road is. Are we going to need, if this gets pushed back or delayed, are we going to need to do some patching that we haven't anticipated for? It's a question. You don't have to answer it right now, but it's just something to think about.
There is the potential for that. We do have where the water break was at Brayburn. I've already asked that to be installed into the road program for 2026. So that piece will be taken care of as new, as well as my recommendation is for the poor souls, the Hymans that live right there at that and had a chunk of their driveway disturbed for that. Not knowing how long it's going to take for the state to do anything, I put the apron repair as part of that project as a separate alternate bid to see what that comes in at. And if the numbers look good, I'd like to get that repaired as well. And I'd like to carry that through potentially to doing the landscaping for her, which we had promised over a year ago to replace, I think, 6 to 8 evergreen trees that were there. She's been very patient. She doesn't understand it any different than we do collectively as why we are where we are.
But yes, we would take a look for the reason that, ComEd was doing cut and patch across the streets. We need to take a second look at that and see how those are going. Some of that repair work, we might be able to dump back on ComEd, no different than we're trying to get them to restore the shoulders. They were given pushback saying, oh, the project's going to start. I go, well, we don't know that that's the truth. So they're on the hook at this point to do the repairs to people's landscaping up and down Saunders and on the intersecting streets, at least through the first house backward, because there are a lot that are messed up and need to be taken care of. So I am pushing for that. We've had emails back and forth. We don't have a definitive date where they're going to start, but they know they need to get that work done.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Trustee Clayton.
Well, with the concern that Trustee Jamerson raised, at this point, is it a significant enough issue that we need to modify the appropriations ordinance to include some additional ceiling?
So the,
Director
sorry,
West,
page
please.
number, the appropriations does have about a 10% cushion for what was budgeted for that MFT line item. So I guess the question becomes, and it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, if more than 10% is what we anticipate it could exceed. And we could always, the MFT only has so many funds in it, where if there's an overage, it might ultimately be the capital projects fund that might have to step in as well. And there is, some capacity in there.
So would you feel more comfortable with an amendment to the appropriations ordinance, or you think that we could?
We could certainly amend
What we have.
the budgeted number by, say, 15%, and then the appropriated number would be 10% on top of that. So I can get my calculator out and just read those numbers out loud so that it's on record here. So we would
Are there other areas that we might consider tapping? That might have the
So on page 38 of the packet, in the appropriations ordinance, it would change the MFT line item for maintenance of streets from $1,178,200 to $1,354,930, and it would change the appropriated amount to 10% above that number. So from $1,296,000 to $1,490,423. And I guess when we get to that part of the new business, I can read those numbers out again if you like.
agreeable? Okay. Are there any other questions for our finance director, please? Okay, seeing none. Treasurer's not with us tonight. Director of Community Services, Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So last week I attended the annual conference of the Illinois Association for Floodplain and Stormwater Management, at which they had presentations by some of the most renowned people in stormwater management across the state and even in the country, including Army Corps of Engineers, talking about projects they're doing worldwide. Of particular note, I attended the regulatory sessions. There were 3 different paths you could go. I did all the regulatory ones and gleaned a lot of good information with regard to the need for the preparation of elevation certificates, which are now required on more than just brand new homes. Found out how we can actually get repetitive loss information easily through the state. There was a CRS manual update in 2025, which we need to go through, and also look at how to regulate projects within the floodplain. Suggestion to be that stormwater permits be, or stormwater permits are actually supposed to be issued for all projects now within the floodplain, including bathtub replacement, shower stalls, roof replacements, anything that's happening to the project, because they monitor the investment in a particular property in a floodplain in the event that there's damage. Like if a hailstorm came through and that damage is repaired, you have to monitor all of that as well too. So there's a lot of monitoring that needs to occur that we're actually not doing right at the moment. So it was a good way as a reminder and learning a lot of new things. Last week, there was a meeting that was held to resolve the final concerns between our engineering firms that are working on the Fed Life detention basin. As well as today, GHA and Hager Engineering met with the County Stormwater Management Commission for a preliminary review of Hager's drawings. Everything looked good according to them. They took no exceptions to anything that is going on. So we expect to work on completing the drawings so that we can get that project started somewhere, perhaps late fall, late summer, early fall. Orphans of the Storm submitted drawings for building permits. They did 2 weeks ago and then made a revision the day that we got the drawings. So now we have the final drawings, we think. We look to get the final review completed yet this week and off to them so that they can continue working on that project. And then lastly, for the Nordic Spa project, Steve Zimmerman and I are meeting with the Pomeroy Group to look at the woodlands and talk about how the project is going to integrate into the woodlands. Pomeroy has actually submitted a revised site plan, which I think is a lot more beneficial to both them and the village with respect to placement of the spa building and the hotel building. Gives them a little more privacy and makes it easier for them to construct the hotel at a later date. So we look forward to moving with that. They are preparing for submission to the Plan Commission. We're just trying to pin down what date that will be at. So be working on that with them tomorrow. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for our director? Thank you. Attorney's report. Attorney Hurwood, please.
There was a meeting today that I wasn't at with the Village of Buffalo Grove. The subject was simply a further discussion about getting water to serve Quick Trip. There are other subjects as well, but I'll let others talk about that. But so there are ongoing discussions about trying to get water to serve Quick Trip. In the meantime, not to steal our Plan Commission Chair's thunder, we've scheduled a public hearing on the zoning that would be required for Quick Trip for April 9th. And the suggestion was made that we try and proceed through the zoning process to keep the landowner engaged, because they've been waiting a long time for Quick Trip to find a way to do this. We may have some other options to talk about in terms of the annexation agreement. It may be that they can annex with 2 different options for water, so they're not stuck with just doing it one way. And then they can elect which option to pursue if the Buffalo Grove option becomes available. So we thought it might be in the village's interest to just keep pushing forward. We did receive a fax copy or electronic copy of the petition for annexation. The hard copy should be with us soon, which essentially establishes the village's jurisdiction, because once we've received the petition, we're going forward. So we felt comfortable enough, at least with where the discussions are going, that we should just keep moving forward with the zoning process. The zoning process itself, I'll just remind the board, within the neighborhood B1 business district, there is provision for different special uses that can be allowed. The Thorntons is a service station and convenience store within that designation. So we suggested some time ago to Quick Trip that the property would be rezoned to the B1 neighborhood business district, that they would apply for special use for a service station and convenience store. So basically the zoning part of it is fairly straightforward. The annexation part is basically addressing the cost of getting sewer and water and how those are dealt with and maintained. So just to let you know about that. The other thing is we received just a few days ago a draft intergovernmental agreement that Lake County has been working on for months and months. This is the agreement that will detail the village's share of local costs with the Deerfield Road project. And one of the things that they are are doing is they're looking at the cost of relocating the water main, the monies that they were going to allocate for tree replacement, the cost that we have for contributing to maintaining the intersections where there, for example, at Port Wine and Deerfield Road is an intersection where we have responsibility for the signal. So county is trying to pull together all these different topics that we have and address them. These are mostly economic topics in this agreement. The directors and I have just received the agreement. We'll have to read through it and probably bring back a better report to the board at the next meeting. That's all I have.
Trustee Jamerson, please.
Just a quick question about the signals. Is that our responsibility to upgrade the signals at Port Wine and Deerfield, or a portion of it, or?
It's a maintenance agreement. I don't think
Oh,
it's the
okay.
upgrade, it's the maintenance.
Okay, that's the better part. Thank you.
Are there any questions for council? Thank you. Police report, Chief.
Yes, as always, the police activity is in your packets if you have any questions on it. A couple of, I want to mention are joining the Deerfield, Bannockburn, Lincolnshire, and now Riverwoods ETSB. So on March 3rd, the statewide 911 administrator advised they had all of the information required for the approval of the Riverwoods Police Department joining what is now the Deerfield, Bannockburn, Lincolnshire, Riverwoods JETSB, which is the Joint Emergency Telephone Services Board. We've been trying to, as you may recall, we've been trying to get out of the Lake County ETSB since before I started here over 18 years ago. And we're out. So an official order authorizing the modification was issued later that week. Then on March 11th, at the March 11th JETSB meeting in Deerfield, I attended along with Finance Director Tony Vasquez, and we were officially accepted into the JETSB pursuant to the December meeting vote. Both Director Vasquez and I are now voting members. As I advised the board previously, as a result of joining the JETSB, the village of Deerfield raised our rates for dispatch services to match Bannockburn's as of January 1st. I did request that the increase wait until we officially joined in March, and then we could prorate. But instead, they did us one better. The JETSB board agreed to credit Riverwoods with its portion of E911 service fees dating back to January 1st. So we'll have some money in the fund. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for our chief? Thank you, and thank you to your department for your service. Thank you. Plan Commission report, Chair Brightcoff. Oh, he did it, did he? Okay. Are there any questions for our chair? Thank you. The Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet. Fire District report, Chief is not with us this evening. Information items and comments from the president. The only thing I have this evening is that you need to fill out and respond to the statement of economic interests that should be coming your way if you haven't seen your email yet. So that would be it. Visitors wishing to address the board. Russ, we missed you. You've been gone. Right.
Hi, my name is Russ Romanelli, and I live in Thorngate. And what I have is a question tonight, and I'm not quite sure who it should be directed at, either of you or possibly Director Witt. But, recently in Thorngate, we've had a large number of water main breaks. And there's been discussion about an effort to contract for some soil boring in select locations. And that sounds great. But my question is two-part. Number one, what would we hope to find from boring holes around the pipes? Because I'm not an engineer. I'm not trying to be critical. I just don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Fair.
What would we hope to find from boring holes around the pipes? And just theoretically, whatever might come out of that, what would we possibly do with that information with a pipe that's 10 feet below the surface?
Well, I'm
Any-
going to engage Director Witt on this, and he can give us a status of the borings. But I will summarize it by saying, I hope we find nothing. We're hoping that the borings tell us about the soil that is surrounding the pipes and supporting the pipes, and that we will find that the pipes continue to be supported well.
Okay.
But I'm going to turn it over to the expert here.
So thank you, Mayor, for the first half of the response.
However wrong it could be.
Soil borings do a couple of things. You know, soil borings, unfortunately, are only good in the location you take it. The soil conditions could be different 6 inches away, and you'd never know it. But I have seen that personally happen on cases. The first thing we're looking for is what the compaction of the soil material is underneath, below the level of the invert of the pipe. And we know that, we know what the inverts would be from, you know, we could take a guess from one side to the other, figure out what that elevation is, and make a determination on how dense the soil is. If over time, during the initial installation, that there was poor compaction, or maybe we were built on poor soil, because being a golf course, typically facilities like golf courses, school playgrounds, they're all built on the worst soil conditions that developers feel that costs them too much money to build a house that's not going to fall apart. So we look for the soils, not only what could be compacted underneath the pipe itself, but we look at even the underlying layers to see whether or not those have the potential for settling over time, which might end up stressing the pipe and actually causing a crack or a pop in the side of the pipe. And that's really the first piece. The second piece is we look at the chemical composition of the soil, whether or not the pH level is not conducive to the type of material that was used for the pipe that was put in. Even though the pipes are coated on the inside and the outside, the steel pipes, that coating often can fail. And if the level of the pH in the soils is high enough, it could actually eat away the pipe and cause pitting of the pipe or pop-outs on it, which can cause a break as well too. The other thing we look at is electrical resistivity of the soil to understand whether or not, which in my belief will more than likely occurred, I forget the second to the last time, where we had 3 breaks on the same night, where I was told that there was a lightning strike that hit, which did something with the pump in the reservoir, which kicked on a higher pressure. So was it the additional pressure in the pipe that caused the 3 breaks, or was it actually the electrical charge in the soil from the lightning strike that gets in the pipe? It goes in and it's got to come out someplace, and it'll find a weak spot in the pipe, and it could blow out the side of the pipe and cause the breaks. So it's a combination of things. Is it one particular thing? No, but it could be a combination of things that we're trying to find out as far as what could be affecting this. We may not come to any conclusion after going through all of this, but the report is due in on the 27th, I believe. So hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll have some kind of update on it.
But, and that's very informative. Thank you very much. I didn't know any of that stuff. But I still, based on all of those things you said of 20 possible situations that could exist, if one or more of them do exist, and I know they may not find anything. If one or more of these negative conditions do exist, is there anything you can do about it? 8, 10 feet below the surface, under the street, under sidewalks and stuff like that? I mean, what would, just a theoretical something that one might do in the face of one of these things turning up some negative information?
Sure. The 2 things that come first to mind, not saying that they're the only solutions. Number 1, dig it up and replace the pipe. If we find out the soils conditions throughout Thorngate are so aggressive to the pipe, you may have no choice, because over time this is going to continue to happen, considering we have rarely breaks anywhere else within the village. So we're concentrating in this particular area where there's an abnormal number of breaks for pipe that's of that age. The other option would be that, the more cost-effective option at this point would be a Band-Aid approach. The break occurs, you fix the break and you move on. It's when you get multiple breaks within several feet of each other that it becomes to a point where the pipe is actually Swiss cheese, and then you would replace a certain section of the pipe, or maybe from this fire hydrant to that fire hydrant, and just start replacing sections at a time. From a budgetary perspective, that's the easiest thing to accomplish because it might cost us $15,000 on a break times 2 or 3 a year maybe, versus $400 to $500 a linear foot to replace the water lines throughout Thorngate. So I don't really want to jump into what, the exact solution would be. That's probably the best and the worst solution.
Okay.
And perhaps there's something in between. Perhaps I will have to say years ago when I was on the Plumbing Code Advisory Council for the Illinois Department of Public Health, there was a time everybody was concerned about lead pipes. And at that point, they were looking at doing lining of the inside of the pipe with a plastic tube, epoxy coated, so that you put the tube in, you blow the thing up, it wraps itself around the inside of the pipe, and life goes on. And they did that to mitigate the lead in the pipe so that there wouldn't be an interaction between the water in the pipe and the lead itself. Unfortunately, at that time, the technology for it was kind of emerging, and the commission, including myself, said no to the vendor that wanted to do it. But that's got to be 10 or 12 years ago. Perhaps there's something that we could do there too. Maybe you drain a section of the pipe at a time. Perhaps we could line something, but I don't know if a material like that's been approved. But in the back of my mind, that could be a solution for it. It's been brought in front of IDPH before. It was poo-pooed at that time, but perhaps there's a change in the technology, and I just have not kept up with that particular topic. But we will take a look at that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's just the type of thing I was looking for, even remote possibilities, because I know nothing at all about this industry and procedures. So
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
This is an important, this is a very important project, very important. Catherine? 2 Romanellis. Well, you missed 2 weeks, so.
No, that,
Yeah.
okay. Catherine Romanelli. So my question is for Chief Dano. This last break happened to be on my street, and there was some confusion about how owners were contacted about not having water till like 6 p.m. that night. How do you reach out to the owners affected?
You don't actually, well, first of all, I do send out an alert that if you're signed up to get our alerts, you should get. But every house that's affected, the main way they're supposed to know is that Walt Hamilton is supposed to notify them.
Right.
And they're supposed to leave a note on the door. Or
Right.
knock on the door.
Keywalt will go door to door, but consider that, the break occurs. They have to be in the office, prepare the notices, get out to the location, and determine which homes are going to be affected by the shutdown, because they have to take a look at their maps to find out who's actually affected. And they do go door to door, knocking on the doors, and they'll do their best to physically hand it to them, hand it to people so that they know that it's occurring. If they have to, if nobody's home, they're going to leave it. But if nobody's home, it's not really affecting them. But they just need to know that there's a boil water order or a boil order in there for a period of time until we can get the testing for the chlorination taken care of.
So we can reach out to all the owners and remind them to sign up for the alerts.
The alert is the secondary means of notification, but the nice thing about it is if the resident is not home, at least they'll know what they're coming home to.
Yes,
So they
Okay.
you should refer them to our webpage where they can sign up to receive.
definitely. We'll take care of that. Between Les and I, we'll reach everybody. Thank you.
Trustee Raff, please.
Yeah, just a question of Mr. Witt. Didn't GW recommend, GWALT recommend some other steps for diagnostics after the borings? Was that the only thing they recommended?
There are, yes, they did. We had two bids that came in, and realistically what we did is I had the village engineer take a look at it and make sure we were looking at apples to apples in the contract. And when the first contractor who had the majority of things listed that we wanted, everything that we wanted in there, and I may have skipped over some things, there were a bunch of tests that do occur, and we have that on record. But the first contractor we couldn't come to terms with from an insurance perspective to make sure that they were adequately covered for any event that might occur. When we went to the second bidder, he did not have certain things in there, mostly for the electric resistivity testing. And that's when we had to bump his bid, and we came to the board and we got that switched around. I forget how long ago that was. But that was Anderson Consulting. They're the ones that did the borings. They did the electric testing. And again, that report is targeted to be completed and delivered to us on the 27th. So it'll be a full report of all the tests and all the results on there.
Are there any other comments? Anyone else? Shelley, you just got here, but we're at the visitors wishing to address the board. And the Romanellis have already done that. So if you'd like to pass, or if you'd like to comment. Okay, moving on to new business. First item of new business is approval of the appropriations ordinance for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2026. I'm going to ask Director Vasquez to go through it with the comments that were made earlier.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll read the memo prepared. Probably be the third time you've heard some of this tonight. Apologies. Each year, the Village Board of Trustees approves an appropriations ordinance for the fiscal year. Unlike the budget, which we prepare for planning and managing expenditures, the appropriations ordinance sets an upper bound for expenditures. The process of amending the appropriations ordinance is cumbersome, and therefore we deliberately include authority in the appropriations to spend beyond what is shown in the budget, to include contingencies and possible, though as of yet, undecided capital projects. Historically, we have included line items in the general fund under other financing uses to highlight possible transfers to other funds for these contingencies. But we are not required to spend up to the full amount of the appropriations ordinance or any amount shown, and in fact, we have never done so. The appropriations ordinance is merely an authority to spend what is appropriated. The actual decision to spend only occurs after an item is presented to the board for approval, except for minor items which fall under the mayor's spending authority. As a convenient reference, we included the budgeted amount for each line item in a column that appears to the left of the appropriated amount, and generally, the appropriated amount is 10% above the budgeted item. This ordinance also includes an estimate of revenues the village expects to receive within the fiscal year. We can spend money for our purposes from revenues received during the fiscal year, as well as from our investment balances. The village held a finance workshop on December 2nd, 2025 to discuss the needs of the various village funds. Suggestions from that meeting were incorporated into the final budget, which is used to create the appropriations ordinance. The recommendation from staff is to waive first reading and hold second reading and adoption of the ordinance with the amended amounts on page 38 in section 2 for the motor fuel tax fund, where we've amended the maintenance of streets with the budgeted amount increased from $1,178,200 up by 15% to $1,354,930, and the appropriated amount, which was written as $1,296,020, increased by 10% of the amended budgeted amount, which I just read, which would increase to $1,490,423,000, and any subsequent changes in totals that would be impacted by that amended amount.
Move to waive first reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion for second reading and adoption, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Raff,
Aye.
trustee Smith,
Aye.
trustee Trevino,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
and trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Ordinance number 26-03-02.
Thank you. Next item of new business, approval of an ordinance to convey certain real estate to the County of Lake. May I have a motion to waive first reading, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Do I have a motion for approval, second reading and approval?
So moved.
Second.
A discussion. If I could ask council to walk us through.
Well, the memo's in the packet. I could sort of lay it out, but if it's clear enough, I won't. But if you'd like me to, I will. Basically, this is a strip of land that's not exactly determinate as to where it's located. It's clearly within the area that Lake County is taking. If we don't do the quitclaim deed, then they will have to name the village in a friendly way as the defendant in their condemnation case, and it will cost us more money in order to wipe out the interest because the owner potentially that they're condemning the property from would have some residual interest in this. So I volunteered that the village would be happy to simply quitclaim it to them to avoid that fate. And the memo gives sort of the background of it. It was one of my more youthful endeavors many years ago for the village, and it's come full circle.
Are there any
That's all I can say.
Are there any questions or comments, please? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Raff,
Aye.
trustee Smith,
Aye.
trustee Trevino,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
and trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Motion passes. Ordinance 26-03-03.
Thank you. Next item of new business, approval of a contract with Quadient Leasing for postage services and equipment. Director Vasquez, please.
Thank you. The village has an expiring lease for mailing services and equipment with Quadient. The village had a lease for a 60-month period that was priced at $315.99 per month, and that 5-year lease expired in early 2025. At that time, Quadient gave us a 1-year extension at a price of $325.19 per month, while the village assessed our postage equipment needs. Since that time, staff has determined that the existing folding and postage machines are well suited for our mailing needs here at the Village Hall. The new lease would be for 60 months at that $325.19 per month amount, which is the same as the price we received on our current extension and a 3% overall increase from the last 60-month lease, which we'd agreed to back in 2020. The total cost of this lease over the 60-month period would be $19,511.40. It should be noted that this lease agreement is a Sourcewell contract. These are cooperative purchasing contracts that allow government entities to buy products and services at a discount based on competitive bidding Sourcewell solicits on behalf of government agencies. The recommendation from staff is for approval of a contract with Quadient for the mailing services and equipment for a 60-month term for an amount not to exceed $19,511.40.
Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, please. Trustee Raff, I believe.
Yes, Director Vasquez. I'm not clear on what the mailing services and equipment, what are the services versus the equipment?
I guess essentially it is the equipment. We are able to purchase postage through the machine. So I guess that is essentially the services part of it.
They're not providing any physical service to us.
Beyond
Our staff is doing the mailing.
Yes, our staff is doing the stuffing and mailing beyond routine maintenance and call outs for the machines that are being leased. That's kind of the extent of the service.
Trustee Smith?
Thank you, Director Vasquez. You may recall about a year ago, we had this conversation as well. And a few of the trustees at that time were thinking, are these services we need? I know you just said the machine's adequate, meets your needs, but did that assessment also include, are there less expensive options, or was it just, is it doing what it's supposed to be doing?
So when we talked about this at that time last year, we had looked into a service that Quadient provides where essentially we would send them PDF files of what we need mailed out. And that's kind of what we evaluated. And while there is potential for cost savings there, because our mailings vary, because we never know if there's going to be a hearing where we need to notify, maybe 100 or 200 or more households. There's some variances there. So what we looked at is to see if the equipment that we were using was kind of adequate for the kind of mailings that we felt we did in-house. We did also look at a folding machine that could do more pages, with the thought that if we ever wanted to engage in bigger mailings from the village, but the price was about double. So I pulled back from that.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Well, let's see, it's for money, so roll call.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
trustee Trevino, trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson
Aye.
and trustee Raff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Last item of new business is the approval of purchase of tickets to the Orphans of the Storm event in an amount not to exceed $5,500. This is the Whiskers and Wishes at the Marriott Lincolnshire on Friday, April 10th. And typically we do purchase a couple of tables to their event. And apparently that didn't make it into the packet, but so I would like somebody to make a motion for approval of the purchase of these tickets.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Should we add it to the permit amount? No. Just kidding.
We'll talk. It's $500 over my spending limit, so here we are. And there'll be a number of tickets, and you can all indicate if you have an interest in going. It's at Lincolnshire Marriott, 3-course dinner. What is silent auction? All those kinds of things. I think a number of the trustees attended last time we went to one of these. So roll call, please.
Trustee Trevino.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Trustee Raff
Aye.
and trustee Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. There's no old business. Board comments. I think there are a number of things going on that I would like Trustee Trevino to comment on. I think are important for us all to share.
The first thing I'd like to do is give a special kudos and shout out to Dana Litwin. She's been doing an excellent job with our digital newsletter and keeps the Riverwoods readers in the know. It's highly informative. It's easy to read. It's easy to learn what's going on in Riverwoods as well as in the area. It provides links if you want to find out a whole lot more information. And not only being visually interesting, but you can wake up on a Saturday morning and it's in your email. So again, kudos to Dana. The next one is I'm very excited to share that the communications team is launching a photo contest for Riverwoods as a way to celebrate the spirit of Riverwoods as well as what makes it unique. You can learn more about it in this week's digital newsletter, but the contest will run from April 1st to the 25th. And photos will be showcased at I think it's the June 16th board meeting. But listening to folks over the past month or so, everyone talks about the beauty of Riverwoods and how many pictures are on the phone and what's on there. And we just thought it'd be a great way to kind of capture what everybody has available. and start sharing that with other residents. So spread the word. Thank you.
Anyone else have it? Trustee Eastman, please.
So this question is for you, Mayor Ford. I had read about a week ago that there were more layoffs at Discover. What broadly are we doing to prepare the village for if they were to eventually entirely vacate that property? What are broadly some concerns, and how can we be best prepared in the worst case scenario there?
I'm going to turn it over to our village council because I think we've got some things in place. But that 5,000 number, I think we've talked about that a number of times. That's a pension liability issue, but as it's come to my attention, it's also a political issue, meaning that the caucus goes away. And political parties will be participating in our elections in a little different fashion, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but that's something that council, if you'd like to.
Well, political parties, we have them now, actually. So
yeah.
the difference is that a town of under 5,000 can have a caucus in lieu of a primary. When you're more than 5,000 in population, those offices, if they're contested, are decided, with a primary. So that would be one change. Over 5,000, we would have a police pension board. We'd be required to. And, the type of pension plan that we would offer and the requirements to say a catch-up contribution, could be something. The mayor's been concerned about that for some time. Those are issues that we would address with a new development. I don't want to jump the gun on this because we don't know their plans. They may find that it's convenient to have that function as one of their main offices. I think it's no longer designated as their headquarters. I think I read that it's one of their 5 or 6 locations. But the original, what I recall, development budget in 2001 and 2, when the campus was enlarged and the present form took shape, was about a $250 million project. That the village and at the time Discover, collaborated on with the special use and amendment to their annexation agreement and such. So there's a lot of investment in that property. I have no idea, what direction it would take. If there were a desire to move away from that campus, well, it would be like many other properties in our area where formerly they were occupied by large office users. Are there going to be large office users? Is someone going to be interested in this location? We don't know. It's probably safe to say that it won't be a logistics center, right?
What do you hope so?
Okay, so I think what you...
The ordinance that.
Yes, I was going to get to that. I think that, yes, that's where I was getting to, is that today, and that's all we can really say, that the pressures for development that you see tend to be in residential. And what we did proactively was to adopt the plan development ordinance as an overlay in that zoning district so that we are pointing in a direction for acceptable types of residential development, acceptable types of density, types of qualities that we're looking for. And until we see more, that's really, as far as I can tell, the best that we can do.
That's helpful. Thank you.
They do need to send what's called a warn letter to surrounding communities when they do major layoffs. And so as a public company, we know when other people know. It's very, very unlikely, although it was sort of interesting that they're going to have a change in security. And I think one of our officers who was talking with the security people there, talking about changing security types, and they talked about layoffs as well. So, but all we can do is try to be prepared. And the PUD, Director Vasquez, please.
Just one quick note, since one of the concerns would be the 5,000 population threshold. Shortly after I got here, I did engage with an actuary firm that actually does actuarial work for the Downstate Police Pension Fund to do a small project where they created an actuarial model based on our police population force of what that unfunded liability would look like. And if things ever progressed to the point of a development, we would try to update that model so that we would have an idea of what that unfunded liability would be if things, went that direction, so that we would have that number in mind when working with a developer.
Trustee Jamerson.
So would we inherit an unfunded liability right off the bat? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or would we inherit the liability we have with the pension system we're in right now? Would that be transferred to the new system?
So essentially, if I understand it correctly, the pensions would go from the current IMRF pension to the downstate police pension, which is funded at a much higher rate than the IMRF pension. And so it would be our responsibility to make up for the difference in that amount.
It's a much richer pension calculation for the euphemistically downstate. It's not really downstate. It's a combination of smaller. Yeah.
So is it, but the fund itself, do we know what the funding of the whole fund is? Is it 86% funded? Is it 96% funded? Do you know that?
Currently?
Yes.
Oh.
No, not our current one.
Oh.
The downstate. Do we know what that?
So while the downstate fund did consolidate, they treat all the separate village entities separately. So one village may be 90% funded on those actuarial targets. Another one may be 60% based on their history over time.
So we would end up with some unfunded liability. Let's say it's $2 million. Let's just say. And then we would have to close that gap, right? Through funding it on our own. So they keep track of each village on their own funding levels.
Correct.
It's similar to the structure that IMRF has. IMRF
And there is a reason why we can't have our own pension fund that's not, I'm just curious.
The law requires that when you reach that population, you join that fund.
Oh, that's, okay. That's a good answer.
Trustee Trevino, you have a question?
And maybe I missed this, but can this property also, if it all goes up for sale, can it also be looked at for a different type of economic development, say a mixed use or something bigger that could bring in a whole lot more revenue on an ongoing basis?
We certainly can look at it for sure. Okay. And adjust, the module in the comprehensive plan doesn't look to that right now. I think it could anticipate mixed use development, and the plan development ordinance that we have could be expanded to include mixed uses, which would allow commercial and retail and things like that.
It's just given its size, it could have some potential for things that we could never have thought we could have here. Right.
Well, for example, even in just thinking about the Nordic Spa concept, the underlying zoning is office and research. The plan development overlay is available. And today I was looking at, well, how would we expand the overlay concept to include this use as opposed to just residential? And I think we'd go through the same exercise with something like that in the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a future issue. It's something we need to, not neglect and be aware of as we move forward. Anyone else? Anyone else for comment? Okay, there's no reason to go into executive session. Next time and date, Board of Trustees Committee of the Whole meeting, April 7th at 6:30. and the regular meeting following at 7:30. So do I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.